Genesis 6, the corruption of mankind. Now it came about, when men began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, whomever they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive with man forever, because he's also flesh. Nevertheless, his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thought of his heart was only evil continually. The Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. The Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, from man to animals to creeping things and to birds of the sky. For I'm sorry that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. These are the records of the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his time. Noah walked with God. Noah became the father of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in the sight of God, and the earth was filled with violence. God looked on the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way upon the earth. Then God said to Noah, The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence because of them, and behold, I'm about to destroy them with the earth. Make for yourself an ark of gopher wood. You shall make the ark with rooms, and shall cover it inside and out with pitch. This is how you shall make it. The length of the ark, 300 cubits. Its breadth, 50 cubits. Its height, 30 cubits. You shall make a window for the ark, and finish it to a cubit from the top, and set the door of the ark in the side of it. You shall make it with lower, second, and third decks. Behold, I, even I, am bringing the flood of water upon the earth, to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life from under heaven. Everything that is on the earth shall perish. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife, and your sons' wives with you. And of every living thing of all flesh, you shall bring 2 of every kind into the ark, to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female. Of the birds after their kind, and of the animals after their kind, of every creeping thing of the ground after its kind, 2 of every kind will come to you to keep them alive. As for you, take for yourself some of all food which is edible, and gather it to yourself, and it shall be for food for you and for them. Thus Noah did. According to all that God had commanded him, so he did. Genesis 6 commentary. To this day, the origin of those that the Bible calls the Nephilim, and I don't even know if I'm saying that right, is very complicated and blurred, and no one actually knows what this means. And there are those that propose everything from something as benign as just really big dudes all the way up to something similar to the mythical Greek gods. But no matter which place you fall within that spectrum, there is no question that everybody's pretty much in universal agreement. These were some pretty tall, pretty bad dudes that stood high, were described in some places, in some translations, as giants. So there's no question that they were big and powerful. They're referred to as, quote, sons of God. They're referred to as, like I said, giants. They're just big dudes, big bad dudes. And they were not only mentioned here, they're mentioned twice in the Bible. On both times is the Old Testament in the Torah, and it's here, and then one other place, so before the flood, and then one other place they're mentioned right before the Israelites take Canaan and make the land their own. And that's significant because when people this tall, like you think in Goliath size, are the ones you have to get through to get the land that God said he promised you, that can be pretty scary. Unless, of course, you know who God is, and then it's not scary at all. But the point is that that's kind of what is understood about these Nephilim, and that's what you need to know. There is some, on a sort of tertiary note, there is some thought for those that believe this is, this is a little hard to explain because I don't believe this, but I at least want to put the thought out there. Simply for discussion. There are those that believe, like I said, that these are sort of mythical creatures or mythical men that weren't just men, but certainly weren't God. So they had godlike powers or godlike abilities, but they weren't quite God. And then they would, sleep with earthly women and create these offspring that were, again, like the sons and daughters of gods. Again, I don't believe that. I think these are just big bad dudes, but that's just one of the things in the arena of ideas that's floating around out there. And then right after that, we get to Noah and his generations, or at least it starts that. And as I mentioned in the introduction to this whole thing, I normally skip the begats and genealogies and measurements and stuff whenever I'm reading the Bible personally. There's just, for me, no reason to read it. This guy begat that guy begat that dude, and then this, person begat that woman, and blah, blah, blah. Or make this 6 cubits high, and that 3 cubits, and that 6 cubits, or make this thing a purple drape. I just can't sit and read that stuff. It drives me crazy. So there are entire chapters that I will skip, or entire sections or paragraphs or sentences that I just don't even read. As soon as I see that, I just skip to the next place that looks like something that isn't a measurement or a genealogy. However, because I want to, be able to say that I have read the entire Bible from cover to cover without feeling like, well, did I ever actually read through the genealogies? And because I want my son to have a version of the Bible that has my voice the whole way through so that I can read to him, I'm going to read, every word in the Bible for this particular series, and then likely never for the rest of my life read the chapters and verses that are simply about begats, genealogies, and measurements. Probably the most significant thing, though, from this particular chapter is the remnant that God is creating with Noah. And this is important for your life because there's going to be a moment where you feel, it's going to happen, Nathan, and for anybody else listening, there's going to be a moment where you're going to feel like you're all alone serving God. It's going to happen. God orchestrates these moments. These are not accidents. These are not just, well, in the course of things, it's kind of what happens. I genuinely believe that God literally orchestrates, for those who truly want to serve him, moments where you feel utterly, completely depleted, defeated, and alone. And you're going to have a moment where you feel like you're the only one serving God, or if there are other people, they're few and far between, and you are going to discover that you're wrong. First of all, God always saves a remnant, and this is clear here with what God did when he flooded the earth. He saved a remnant of people through Noah and a remnant of animals on the ark. And then when God marries himself to Israel, but then subsequently divorces her and sends his people basically into slavery, and I don't know slavery, but certainly into bondage. And that's not really the right way to say that. They sent themselves. God warned them, and they chose that path. So I suppose that's not the right way to say that. When God allowed the consequences of their sin to come to fruition, it was their choice to go into slavery. It was their choice to go into bondage. They had everything, a land flowing with milk and honey. So when they made that choice, the remnant that actually listened and participated with where God was headed, even though it meant the destruction of their temple and the destruction of their national pride and the destruction of their nation, and at the hands of what God had always said was their enemy, yet now he wanted them to willingly go into bondage to these people, that's a tough pill for them to swallow. That would be like today in America if the Nazis came back and God spoke and said, I want you to submit to the Nazis. We wouldn't have any of it. Well, that's kind of like what they were going through at the time. And those that went willingly, that trusted God and said, normally I wouldn't go to the Nazis, not to serve and not to be a part of what they're doing. Let's be very clear here, but to submit to their rule. That's kind of like what Israel felt. Now, that's a tough comparison, and I get it, because, the Nazis specifically killed God's people. My family's Jewish, so I get the irony in the comparison there. It's not lost on me. But it's important that you, as the listener, really understand the depth of how hard it was for Israel to bury their national pride and submit to a nation that was completely in sin, completely doing the wrong thing, completely opposite of what God had set up and was setting forth as the way things should be. And then not only that, but fold themselves into that nation and allow their nation to crumble. And then not only that, but on top of that, these were people that God had previously told them that Israel would be subduing them, and yet they're going to be subdued by these sinful people. So I get that it's not exactly the correct thing by saying the Nazis, but you get the point. The point is that those who willingly follow God become the remnant. And God always provides a remnant somewhere. You are not alone. You may feel alone. You may think you're alone. And it may look like you're alone, but you're not. There is a remnant of people always that love, cherish, and serve God. You are not alone. You just have to find them.